verdict came at noon. Death. One word. The Valdren High Court had deliberated for 6 hours. They needed one word to end it. Ambassador Kira Solis stood in the defendant's dock and heard it without flinching. 43 years old. 20 years in the diplomatic corps. She had sat across tables from species that wanted humanity gone from the coalition altogether. And she had smiled through those meetings too. She did not flinch now. The presiding judge, a Valdren elder named Sorath, whose reputation for severity was well documented in every embassy briefing Kira had ever read, looked down at her with the expression of a man closing a file. The defendant is found guilty of espionage against the Valdren state, he said. Outright infiltration of secured diplomatic channels. Theft of protected military communications. The sentence is death, to be carried out within 30 days. The court gallery murmured. 12 species represented up there, all of them watching. All of them calculating what this meant for their own relationship with the Valdren Empire, and with humanity, and with each other. Kira looked at Sorath. I understand, she said. That was all. No plea. No outburst, no declaration of innocence, though she was guilty of what they charged. She had done it. She would do it again. The defendant will be remanded to secure custody, Sorath said. This session is closed. He reached for the gavel. The transmission came before he touched it. Drop your city in the comments right now. I want to know where in the world you are watching tonight. Subscribe to HFI Universe if you haven't already, because what Earth just sent into that courtroom changes everything. Let's go. The transmission arrived on the court's internal secure channel, not a public frequency, not a diplomatic line. The internal channel, the one used for judge-to-judge communication, for classified procedural notes, for conversations the court did not want recorded in the public transcript. Nobody outside the Valdren judiciary was supposed to know that channel existed. The message had no sender identification, no diplomatic header, no coalition routing stamp. 3 lines: we heard everything. We recorded everything. Asterisk release Ambassador Solis within 6 hours, or every word spoken in this courtroom for the past 11 years goes to every species in the coalition simultaneously. Sorath read it. Write it again. Set down the gavel he had not yet lifted. The courtroom did not know what had arrived. The gallery could not see the judge's private screen. They saw only Sorath sitting very still, unusual for a man who moved through proceedings like clockwork. He moved through proceedings with the efficient momentum of a man who had done this for decades and found no reason to slow down. He was sitting very still now. He looked at Kira. She looked back. You knew, he said, not loudly, almost to himself. Yes, she said. The 6 hours that followed were the longest in recent Valdren diplomatic history, and they happened behind closed doors. Sorath closed the court session without explanation. The gallery was cleared. The official record showed a standard recess. What happened in the chambers behind the bench was not in any official record at all. The Valdren intelligence director arrived within 20 minutes. He read the transmission, asked 3 questions, and received answers that made him sit down without being offered a chair. How long? He said. 11 years, his deputy told him. The deputy had spent the past 40 minutes pulling records, running traces on the transmission's origin, trying to find the entry point, how Earth had accessed the internal channel, when, through what vulnerability. She had not found it, not because the trail was hidden, because there was no trail. The transmission had arrived the way a message arrives when the sender has been inside your system long enough to understand it better than you do. Not a breach, not a hack, an arrival. As if the channel had accepted it, the way you accept a message from someone who has always had your address. 11 years, the director repeated. At minimum, the deputy said. We cannot confirm when access began. We can only confirm that 11 years of proceedings are referenced in their message with enough detail to be credible. The director looked at the wall for a moment, then at the transmission, then at the wall again. What do they have? He said. The deputy handed him a secondary document, a summary her team had pulled together in 40 minutes of very fast work. Every closed session, every secure channel communication, every private negotiation conducted in this building under the assumption that Valdren secure channels were secure, trade negotiations, military planning sessions, conversations about coalition member species that those species would not enjoy reading, internal debates about humanity, the dismissive ones, the contemptuous ones, the meetings where senior officials had said on record, That human coalition membership was a temporary inconvenience that would resolve itself. As the species failed to keep pace with galactic development, all of it, 11 years of it, the director put the document down after 4 pages. Get me the foreign minister, he said. Then he stopped. The ambassador, he said. Solis. How long has she been posted here? The deputy checked. 9 years. He closed his eyes for a moment, opened them. She was here before we arrested her. Yes, she was here the whole time. Yes. He said nothing else. He picked up his communicator and made the call. Kira spent the 6 hours in a holding room 2 floors below the courtroom. Small, clean. A table, 2 chairs, a water dispenser that worked. Nobody came to interrogate her. Nobody came to threaten her. A guard stood outside the door and that was all. She sat at the table and waited. She had been waiting for 11 years, in a sense. Not in a holding room. In meetings, in negotiations, in the careful long work of being in the right places at the right times, and saying the right things and making sure that when the moment came, Earth had what it needed to act. She thought about her first posting to the Valdren capital, 9 years ago. Fresh credentials, a small staff, an embassy office on the 14th floor of a building that housed 6 other coalition member missions. She had read the intelligence briefings about the Valdren before she arrived, the official ones, and the ones that were not official, and the ones that had been assembled by her predecessor over 4 years of careful observation. The picture they painted was of a species that had been at the center of coalition politics for too confident. Established. Not hostile to humanity, but not interested either. An indifference that came from a very long history of mattering, and a very short history of encountering something new. They had looked at humanity and seen a small entry in the census data. She had looked at the Valdren and seen 11 years of work. The technical team had taken 3 years to find the channel access point. 2 more to be certain it was stable. Another 2 to build the archive that now sat on servers outside Valdren space, copying every transmission as it arrived. Indexed and searchable and ready. The trial had not been the plan. The trial had been an opportunity. When the arrest came, when they brought her in and charged her and the proceedings began, she had sent one message back to Earth. 4 words. Begin the final phase. Then she had sat through the trial and let it run and waited for noon. She had been waiting for 11 years. 6 more hours was nothing. At hour 4, the foreign minister himself walked through the door. He was a tall man Valdren always read as tall to human eyes. Something about the proportions with the bearing of someone who had spent his career managing crises, and was managing one now with visible effort to appear calm. He sat across from her. Ambassador Solis, he said. Minister Vale, she said. They looked at each other for a moment. 2 people who had met formally on 14 occasions over 8 years. Who had exchanged diplomatic pleasantries and negotiated minor trade frameworks and attended the same coalition functions. Who had, apparently, been having 2 separate conversations the whole time. You have been monitoring our communications, he said. Yes, she said. For 11 years, longer actually, she said, but 11 years of material that is directly relevant to current coalition politics. Vale was quiet. The trial, he said. You allowed it to proceed. We needed the verdict, she said. A lesser charge, you might have appealed. A detention, you might have negotiated. A death sentence from the High Court that required a proportionate response. You used your own ambassador as bait, he said. Kira looked at him. I volunteered, she said. There is a difference. He looked at her for a long time, reassessing. She could see it happening, the slow revision of 11 years of interaction. Every meeting and message and exchanged pleasantry being re-examined through a new lens. What do you want, he said. A conversation, she said. The kind we have never actually had. About what humanity is and what the Valdren Empire is, and what we both want from the next 50 years of coalition membership. You are blackmailing us into a conversation. We are creating conditions, she said, under which a real conversation becomes possible. You have never taken us seriously enough to have one. Now you will. Vale was quiet again. Longer this time. Outside the holding room, she could hear nothing. The building was well insulated, but she knew what was happening up there. Advisors. Intelligence reviews. Damage assessments. People calculating how much of 11 years of secure communications humanity actually had, and what it would mean if it reached the coalition. What guarantee do we have, he said. That you will not release the recordings regardless. She said. You have our word. Which, Given what we have just demonstrated about our capability for long-term planning, you should probably take seriously. Something moved in his expression. Not quite a smile, the shadow of one. You are not what we thought you were, he said. No, she said. We are not. He stood, straightened his jacket, the gesture of a man preparing to go back to work. 6 hours, he said. You will have your conversation. He left. Kira finished her water, folded her hands on the table, thought about 11 years of patience and planning, and the satisfaction of a thing going the way you built it to go. The court had sentenced her to death. They had not known Earth was listening. They had not known Earth had always been listening. The conversation took 3 weeks, not in the holding room. In a proper negotiation suite, with both delegations present, with translators and advisors and the formal apparatus of diplomacy finally pointed at something real. Vale led the Valdren side. Kira led Earth's. On the first day, Vale asked how. Not politically, technically. How had Earth accessed Valdren's secure channels without leaving a trace, Kira told him. Not everything, enough. He listened. Asked follow-up questions that told her his technical team had been working on the same problem for 4 days and had not gotten as far as she was taking him in 40 minutes. Your engineers, he said, are very good, she said. How long have they been working on this? Since first contact, she said. We are a young species in a very large galaxy. We learned early that information was the only resource we could not be outspent on. On the 3rd day, Vale asked about the trial. Why espionage? What Kira had actually been doing. She told him that too, not accessing military secrets, not gathering intelligence for aggression. Building a picture over 11 years of careful monitoring of how the Valdren Empire actually made decisions. Not the public positions, the real ones. The conversations in private chambers between the people who actually held power. You wanted to understand us, he said. We wanted to negotiate with you, she said. Not the version of you that appears in official communications. You, the decisions you actually make and why. He sat with that for a long time. And now you understand us, he said. Better than you might be comfortable with, she said. Yes. On the final day, they signed a framework that neither side had expected to produce 3 weeks earlier. Not a friendship. Not an alliance. Something more durable than both, a set of agreed principles for how two powers that now understood each other would operate in the same coalition, without the pretense that had defined the previous 11 years. Vale shook her hand at the signing. A human gesture he had never used before. He had practiced it. Ambassador, he said. Minister, she said. The recordings, he said. Sealed, she said. Both copies. Valdren and Earth. Neither released without mutual agreement. He nodded. Let go of her hand. You took a significant risk, he said. Calculated, she said. Death, he said. That was the sentence. She looked at him. We knew you would not carry it out, she said. Once you knew what we had, what you did not know was whether we would use it anyway. She paused. That uncertainty was the point. He understood. She could see at the moment he fully understood what the trial had been, what the 6 hours had been, what the 3 weeks had been. Not a crisis humanity had survived. A move humanity had made. He left without another word. Kira gathered her papers. Thought about the moment the transmission had arrived in the courtroom. Soreth reading it, setting down the gavel, looking at her with that single word. You knew, yes, they always had. That is the story for today. Drop a comment and tell me what city you are watching from tonight. And tell me this, at what point did you realize Kira had planned the entire thing from the beginning? If this story kept you watching, share it with one person tonight. It takes 2 seconds and means everything to this channel. Subscribe to HFI Universe if you have not already. New stories every week. The next one is already on its way. Until then, stay human. Even when the galaxy underestimates you, especially then.